Look at this crew.
What's up?
Hello.
Hey.
Hey,
Audio working, hopefully.
Audio is
Mhm.
working. Your audio is working anyway.
Good, good, good. So I'm gonna have to move to my phone in a little while. So I'll have to drop and then pick back up a few minutes after that.
Just don't wreck the car while you're driving.
I won't be driving. I'm actually walking and then I'm getting on a bus.
Okay.
I'm
Don't
in
get hit by the
Belgium.
bus while you're walking.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
in Belgium, so we're gonna go visit some relatives, but we're not making them drive into the city to pick us up because it's not the best time to drive into the city.
Good afternoon, Benny.
afternoon
Good to see you.
for me.
Well, I guess we should go ahead and get started. The this is a mostly a brainstorming meeting. I guess it's kind of a board meeting as well. But all thoughts and plans and thinking is welcome. Hopefully we've got the AI capturing to-dos and that kind of thing, but we can point out things to it. Um, just a couple of housekeeping things. Uh, Early on, we have the two blog posts queued up that I think all of you have reviewed. One's about the board and the Articles of Incorporation update, and the other is about the change in support from Upsun. And I wondered what order should those go in, and does it matter? And if you had any opinions about those, they seem important. I don't know whether anybody cares or not, but they both seem important, significant, and uh, they ought to be in some order, but I'm not sure which order. They aren't. They don't relate to each other, but they're both important, and we'd like people to read both of them and understand both of them.
Well, maybe what you could do is, it being December, is, well, I don't really have a strong opinion, first of all, on the order, so I'll just get that out of the way. But maybe to help amplify is, also do a kind of end of the year review blog post where you can revisit both.
We do that every year in January, and
Right.
my plan was to do that after our meeting in Jan. Actually, I was my plan was to draft it for our meeting in January,
Right.
and we do an hour review and then publish it after that. Of course, December, nobody is paying attention to anything anyway. So,
Mhm.
so they're all gone. They're all on vacation. Maybe they're buying presents. I don't know what they're doing. But
Somewhat
you know,
accurate, yeah.
our amplitude stats, watching them over the years, in December, they go like this. It's like nobody, I mean, it is really serious. It's amazing how how many fewer projects get started up in December. The first year I saw that, I thought, oh no, it's all going to hell, you know.
That's it. You had a good run. Uh,
You should totally show that graph in the January post. I don't know if you've called that out before, but it's a fun anecdote. I think people would enjoy reading.
Yeah, actually, I don't know whether I have a good I may not have a good way to track that anymore. I mean, Amplitude has it, but I probably don't have the graph anymore. I should try to
Mm.
figure out the graph. Yeah.
I mean, as far as blog post ideas go, like surprising things I learned through DDEV analytics could be something, like or surprising things we learned about the DDEV community through the analytics, right?
Yeah, AI add that to the to-dos, a good blog post idea.
Yeah.
That is a good idea. I've done Amplitude reviews before, and we have one with links to the live Amplitude stuff on ddev.com. with live updates. But it's rather dry compared to that. So yeah, good idea. So I guess we'll just drop one before the other and we'll figure out which one it is. Maybe do one this week and do one next week.
Well,
Mhm.
I
one, I mean, the doesn't one of them refer to the other? That kind of forces the order, right?
No, I don't think they do. But I could be wrong. The
I thought
the
in the sponsor one, you refer to the new board.
It could, it could,
But
although it
maybe,
could be,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I
So
mean,
we'll do the board first. We'll do the board first. Okay. Thank you. There we go. We got fantastic decision-making process here in place. So, um, I guess the a fair place to open. I gave some links in the calendar invite to the 2026 list that we have going, which doesn't have very many things on it. It has um, features like incorporating MakeCert directly into DDEV, so people didn't have to do a separate binary. Um, One thing that is really important to me is to spend the time this year to try to get most of our testing out of my house. I don't
Mhm.
know whether we'll be able to do that, but that's one of those things that's um, not urgent, but very important and something that we really want to take care of so that um, so that it doesn't require somebody at my house to do a hard reboot or that kind of thing. We don't have those kind of problems very often, but it just makes sense to try to solve that problem. Um, I did a little research on that the other day. Anyway, I think we should try to do that. I think we can move the WSL2 testing for, I think we have a good chance of being able to move that into GitHub Actions. Um, uh,
that's not
uh,
on this list though, right?
it's on the, here, I'll show you what I'm looking at. It's on the list of 2026 strategic.
Yeah, that's
Um,
what I'm looking at.
here's the
But
Move
is there
stuff
here's the
out
like,
of
link for
Randy's
that.
house.
Yeah, it's the second one on there.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. I don't know.
Um,
Staring right at it. Sorry about
yeah,
that.
that's all right. It's not, they
Okay.
I think you've all seen the nice picture of the book the bookshelf um
Yeah.
upstairs in my house that has all of those machines on it, and it is not very professional, but I don't think that's the real issue. The real issue is, can it be managed by this organization
Mhm.
successfully without my personal intervention? So, and it, of course, it is the way it is because it's been by far the most cost effective that we could pull off, but we just have to solve it for an organizational reason. So, and it will cost us some more. Um, the third one on the list is an obscure thing that is probably not that difficult to do. When people do DDEV commands in multiple terminal windows, the results can be unpredictable and doesn't
Mhm.
happen very often. I don't think well, it may happen, but it doesn't get reported very often. But Stas and I have responded to that a time or two, and it just seems like an appropriate something that should be appropriate to take care of.
So I've never heard, so that's an issue if someone has two terminal windows open, running two different DDEV commands against the same project or different projects, or does it not matter?
It doesn't matter. So what can
Wow.
happen? So if you
Okay.
have if you do it if you only have one
Hmm.
project running and you do a DDEV start in one window and a DDEV stop in the other window, and it finds that the router isn't going
Mhm.
yet in the one,
Hmm.
then the one will stop the router while the other one thinks it's starting it. And
And bad things happen. Yeah.
that's a lot of times it doesn't matter. So if you have more than one project running and you do a DDEV start, it mostly won't do any harm. It won't have any hiccups unless it has to add extra ports, listen to extra ports, that kind of thing. So,
Yeah,
um,
I've definitely I've run into that working on DDEV at times when I've been like running tests and I forget like, oh, while I'm waiting, I'll be like, well, I'm waiting for the tests to go. I'm gonna go work on my other actual project, right? And then the Docker environment gets all confused.
yeah, it's not great. It's not really important, but it's another one of those things that is clearly not urgent,
Hmm.
but it's a very reasonable thing to solve. So we'd like to do that. Let me just share my screen so that we're looking at the same thing, and you can tell me to look at other things along the way as well. Yeah, here's what I'm looking at. Um, the the DDEV PHP storm or JetBrains uh, thing got moved to the code got moved to the DDEV org, but moving the plugin on the JetBrains marketplace is it requires some effort. And so we need to apply that effort because that's another place where it matters to the organization. We have a great maintainer for that now, but he needs the support with JetBrains, and we need the time to just solve that. And then another thing that I put on here is something that we obviously as a board will be discussing at some point. And it says consider building infrastructure to support new features as premium features. And um, and a lot of open source projects do very well with a freemium model. Um, we, like Go Releaser, we were perfectly happy to pay them for the premium features that they provide, and they're almost fully open source, and they do it very smoothly. Um, I don't think we need to consider that idea today, but it's a consider on the
Mhm.
on there. So those are the only things that I had on there uh, that actually made this the strategic list. Um, I'm sure there may be others that you have in mind um, that should be on that list, and we can certainly add them. Um, I gave um, I gave links to a um, couple of the other things like the the 2025 list is this one. Put that in the chat if I can figure out how. So this is the 2025 list and its situation right now. Um, I still hope to work on GitHub code spaces and related tasks this year. That's certainly on my agenda is to improve GitHub code spaces and probably try out Coder, try to fill a bit of the gap from the loss of Gitpod. Um, 70, 7221 is another one of those little ones that um, could be taken care of, and it doesn't matter this year or next year, but it's prioritized a little bit anyway. Um,
I'm curious, Randy, like what our definition of a strategic issue is. And what I mean by that is like some of these things, like um, the GitHub Code Space is probably a good example of one that I can see a strategic lens in it, where it's like it's about maybe making it easier for new contributors. It's about dealing with the fact that Gitpod does, went away and was something that I think a lot of people were using, all of that. Some of the other ones here feel a little bit more like just tasks for DDEV to do, which is fine. But I'm curious, like if you had a different sort of, you know, thinking process when you were going through planning for 2025, and like just so that we're all sort of using the same guidelines of what we consider to be strategic.
Yeah, I think it got polluted a little bit along the way. Um, Essentially, that list ended up being things that we would like to probably get done um, this year,
Hmm.
but the origin of it was our 2025 blog,
Right.
which I can't find my way to with too many windows on the screen. But the 2025, the 2024 review 2025 blog had these things on it, most of which we've been fairly successful with, but we've added a couple of things to it, like the private link capability, the bottom one there. Some people rightly object to putting an extensive debug output in support because they don't want to make it public, which is totally reasonable. And so providing a private capability for that is a nice
Hmm.
idea. Um, Thank you, Ralph, for posting the 2025 uh, version of what we're working on here for 2026. Um, so yeah, so this got polluted a little bit by being converted into we would like to get this done by the end of the year.
Hmm.
And I don't, you can tell me what you think, Stas. I don't think we're ever going to do the config rework.
It's
Do you think?
probably maybe something for DDEV 2.0 because
Yeah.
it's really, I think, massive rewrite for all the code base.
And while the value would be there if you were starting from scratch, the disruptive, um, the amount of work compared to the amount of perceived value is quite low, I think, which I think is what you're saying too. So I think that one will drop off, even though that was on the, I don't think that one will make it to 2026.
Yeah, the other bit I'd be curious about, and I don't know if this can be surfaced either on this Kanban board or on the spreadsheet, is just the level of effort,
Hmm.
right? You mentioned like one of them, maybe the DDEV primary URL one is a little one. Um, and where obviously the, moving stuff out of Randy's house may not be so small. So that would be,
Hmm.
and then I guess the other kind of piece of data that I don't have is like what percentage of your time and Stas's time is working on like reactive issues versus proactive issues?
I think that's a really important point, and it's really important in thinking about our planning.
Right.
Most of DDEV's genius is the fact that we listen to what the community is saying. And so when people have friction or needs, we try to solve the friction. So you'll see that there was a friction reported this morning in the issue queue. Um, this one right here was reported 6 hours ago, and Stas fixed it already today. because he tested it, figured out what was going on, and did a small PR for it where he found the logic was incorrect.
Mhm.
So we spend a lot of time being reactive, and that is um, sometimes that means new features because we see friction that could be resolved by something straightforward. Um, but we spend a lot of time paying attention to what the community is saying, and I think that's wonderful.
Mhm. I
But
wonder.
I would like to I would like to see us. Well, we did a good job the last 2 years, at least, maybe every year. We've done a good job laying out strategic things, but still, we spend a lot of time on other things. But when we do the review this year, you'll see that we addressed a number of very large strategic items. Go ahead. I think Andrew, you were going to say something.
Yeah, like if I were to ask, I assume you're not logging hours worked or anything like that, but if we were to just ask out of all the things we've did in DDEV over the last year, how much of it was new features, how much of it was fixing bugs, and how much of it was I'll call it support, but things that like ended up being no action. Like you had to investigate, right? Is that something that we could easily find out now, or do we not actually have the sort of the metadata in GitHub to be able to answer those sorts of questions?
First of all, we do in fact log our hours. Both Scott
Oh,
and
okay.
I report them in detail every month with our invoices. Um, but we don't attempt at this time to um, categorize or to break
Hmm.
them up. I think both of us put a good description of what we've been doing for each time section that we work on. And so you could look at it, and if you could remember what it meant, you would have meaningful stuff, but we don't attempt to apply it to projects or to spend much effort on it besides describing it and that kind of thing. So,
Maybe we should, I mean, end of the year is a great time to, or, January is a great time to start something like
Hmm.
this. Maybe and I've got to drop off here in a moment, but I'll hop back on in a few minutes. Um, just define for lack of a better word, a taxonomy for tasks. So when you do, um, when you guys do submit those timesheets, each task is categorized either as, support or bug, just something so that, this time next year we can look back and say, okay, well, 38% of the time was this and 52% of the time was that. And
I mean, even
go ahead.
doing it for just a month and evaluating after the month, because there, like, we might find that you look at that and you're like, this is exactly what it should be. We're doing everything right. In which case, is the overhead of additional tracking worth it or not? But if we found that, only 20% of your time could be dedicated to DDEV features, right? That could be there we could then decide as a group that like, oh, from a strategic standpoint, we need to solve that problem, right? Um, yeah.
If it's a problem. Hey, I
Right.
added to do about tracking possibilities. Um, I am certainly willing to think about that. I'm not sure how annoying that would be to us. So I think we should consider that.
yeah, I mean, we want to make it simple. We don't want to add,
No.
overhead, obviously, but
well,
it would
I
be
mean,
good to have some idea for planning purposes.
yeah, you see how fast we respond
Yeah.
to support. and what a great reputation we have for that. And
Yeah.
that context switch costs, of course,
Mhm.
but if we had to turn on and off our tracking for
Yeah.
every Slack
Oh yeah.
message, it could be
Yeah. No. Yeah.
annoying.
No, and
But it's
that's
still it's worthy of thinking about. So let's do
yeah.
it.
No, I'm glad you mentioned that because I did want to. I kind of wanted to say along the same lines. We have to be really careful with this because we
Mhm.
don't want to, the support that DDEV has or that people have using DDEV. That's one of the things that people love about DDEV, and we can't mess that up by, by saying, oh,
Mhm.
nope, you've already done your 60% of the month on support. Now you got to work on these tasks. Like we don't want to do that.
Right.
Right.
So we have to be, it's a fine line. We got to be careful with it, but I think there's some value in collecting some data that isn't difficult for, to accomplish. All right, I'm gonna drop off. I'll be back in a few minutes.
All righty. Thanks.
Along this line, going back to the list you had around, um, well, I don't know if sponsorship was on it in the 2026 list. But I wonder, oh no, it's the premium features thing, right? Like in a world where for you, Randy and Eustace, like the work you're doing is exactly what you should be doing, and we shouldn't change anything. But there are features that we want to add to DDEV. There's something to be said about defining a structure and a process and doing the promotion and so on of offering to like having specific projects ready to go where users of DDEV could contribute that specific targeted feature that is a key priority for DDEV. And their organization gets some level of sponsorship recognition for that. Because an advantage of something like that is that person is probably not doing support. They're probably not day to day in the DDEV queue like you are. So they're having them, we're not taking them away from anything, right? But then it could also give us a path towards like if that doesn't work, like if we have five strategic new big features or issues that we want to see happen with DDEV and that doesn't get us traction, then you could try doing the premium thing or other other alternatives, right? But I know uh, if I weren't talking to people, I don't know if I would be able to tell you as like an engineering manager where a developer who has 4 weeks in between projects should work on to make a big difference to DDEV.
Yeah. Um, somebody uh, somebody had brought that up in the last couple of days, asking why or whether. Oh, I know who it was. It was from Mautic. They have
Ruth.
great benefit by they have great benefit by having organizations sponsor developers to work on stuff. And I was responding to Ruth that the difference in the ecosystem of DDEV development from a normal PHP developer has often been a little bit too wide to be apparently successful with that kind of thing. But it's a valid idea, and that's related to what you're saying. Uh, do we have um, do we have things that could be taken on like that? The reality is, in this year, we have undertaken probably 6 to 10 very significant tasks that were clearly laid out in our plan for the year that could have been done if that were a possibility.
Mhm.
And the user were there. So we did actually lay out in the blog that somebody put up. We did lay out and we did attack those this year, and that's good. And you see those on the I think you see a bunch of those done
Hmm.
here on the list. There's quite a number of very, very significant, uh, very significant things that we took on and did. A couple of those that were huge investment were specifically to make Upsun feel loved, and you see how that worked out. We added a whole PHP the ability to do add-ons in PHP so that we could rework their add-ons in PHP with a more powerful situation. And I don't think that they understand that, or they have their own things to deal with, right?
Hmm.
All of your organizations have their own thing to deal with. So thank you for being here and helping with this all year.
So, I think I think Andrew said it right, that we don't need to mess with anything that is currently working. If I look at the strategic things for 2026, I'll try to give a different angle to things, apart from the list you already have. And the first one is, well, from a personal point of view, obviously I use DDEV for local development of my customer projects, right? That's where all the agencies come in. And then I'm currently trying, with Randy, with Jochen, to figure a way out to have a local development for open source project. That means for Typo 3 in our case, that it's like the easiest way to contribute to our project through git clone, DDEV start, and everything's running, maybe through an add-on or something like that. So to give that as a possibility to expand DDEV into different areas where it could be of use that isn't of use yet. This year I've been working with, or not I've been working with, but I've been playing around with WordPress, and they use some very strange, you do a npm exec whatever, and it runs some Docker Compose, but then through Node, which is kind of weird to set it up. And it felt like a lot of black magic to have the kind of official development platform for developing WordPress further. And this might be an area where we could expand and see if we could help open source projects to make DDEV their default for contributing. Because it's so easy to use for all of my colleagues in my company. It should be as easy to use for the people who want to contribute to Typo 3, and it's really hard to do. So, and I don't know if it's just a Typo 3 problem, but this might be a topic where we could make DDEV better from a strategic point of view, so it gets known more and more. That's one thing. At the same time, we should also evaluate, and I'm pretty sure you have the stats on this. How many people use it for local development or CI, or where we have it as DDEV is kind of like the drop-in for the hosters like Upsun, where we could also expand, right? And this is obviously probably when we have to look into WordPress more and more, and then see how we can get better in these kind of areas, and not just on a per issue basis, but actually this is first talking to people, doing research, and then having this in mind, we need to look into marketing or fundraising. It's something we talk a lot about, but we need to get the handle on it, because the more DDEV is getting more prominent, and like as a base foundation, because it's rock solid, and we can talk about our features, but we talk about it just works. I love this expression 20 years ago from Mac. It just works, and that's DDEV. And if we have this in place, we just need to make sure that it's funded properly, because in my opinion, features is not the biggest problem, but funding or
To
sponsorship.
take the first half of what you said and try to turn that into like
Thanks.
an actionable goal.
Yeah.
Like, what if we had a goal along the lines of like have DDEV be adopted as the primary local platform for development by a new CMS or framework of some kind. Like, for example, Drupal has basically done this. Like, the Drupal community is pretty much standardized around DDEV. It's what the Drupal core docs recommend. And I don't know if WordPress, for example, is the right target or not, but like that's why I would frame it as one, right? Because if WordPress were to say, actually, we're going to deprecate our NPX system and tell everyone to use DDEV, that would be huge, right? And maybe there's another system out there where like we support them and we could have some communication with their, do the research to figure out who would be most interested in doing that and what the gaps are and try and target something like that.
Just for perspective, DDEV is already the official documented thing for Craft CMS,
Hmm.
really for Typo 3. It's been on Typo 3's docs for years and years. Um, a couple others, but then there are places, I think Laravel would probably be a better target than WordPress. WordPress is such a fragmented community, huge, absolutely huge,
Hmm.
valuable, but fragmented in terms of strategy, style, community. It's very and of course their implementation is old fashioned and powerful and successful and amazing. They're but very, very difficult to break into them as a whole. But Laravel, the support has been growing and growing, and that is another place that has a fractured local development strategy, and where
Hmm.
DDEV has been making strides there, but we haven't done or tried or whatever anything to uh, standardize in their world. And Stas has significant background in the Laravel world and has his ears in that. So that's a good thing.
I was a contributor to the Laravel Homestead local development system back before we were using DDEV. That was a vagrant-based solution. Uh, and I think, from on the adoption standpoint, something that might be interesting about a tool like Laravel that is still really marketing towards developers. If I look at it like the Drupal world right now, um, Acquia is clearly pushing towards um, tools and systems that don't have developers in the loop. They're doing a hosted Drupal CMS that you can't write custom code for. They're, pushing do everything in production kind of model. We see some things with that sort of future that, Pantheon is pushing towards as well. Like, you know, do everything in our dashboard with AI tools or whatever. Um, so like, I wonder, like, if identifying the the organizations and the open source communities who are still actively investing in a sort of developer first local development workflow would be, a good strategy for us.
How would we do that? How would that play out?
Well, your mention of like working, like putting some effort into working with Laravel or other like-minded communities might be one way to do that.
So, okay. Yeah. I wonder if one of the things I always wonder is what comes after our current strategy. What comes after Docker? Docker's been around for a while. People like it and hate it. They think it's hard. DDEV wraps it up for them, and they still think it's hard. Um, they think it's Docker desktop. It's not Docker desktop. All these things, but like, what's the next thing? I'm always interested in thinking about that. And like some people look at Nix OS and say, well, that's obviously, or Nix, and say, that's obviously the thing. Or they look at WASM and they say, oh, that's the new thing. But both of those don't have the networking abstraction or imitation that Docker has. But like, what is the next thing? And I'm always interested in your thinking about what is the next thing? What is the next pathway for local development? But Andrew, one of the things I hear you saying is that one of the new pathways isn't developers, and it isn't local development to begin with, and that's an interesting thing. That could I don't know for sure, and I think those organizations are brilliant to be pushing that where it can work. Um, Having developers is expensive, and having local development for developers is easy if you have the developers. Developers are the problem, right? So anyway, interesting thinking.
Maybe another strategic direction we haven't talked about in the realm of AI is we've been doing some investigation over the last few weeks, doing sort of some deep dives into effective sandboxing and security controls around generative AI agents like Claude Code and so on. And one of my coworkers gave me a heart attack because he's like, "Yeah, I run Claude only inside of DDEV so that it's secure, right?" And I was like, "But that actually, like, there's so many ways, do you have Pantheon tokens that it could use to delete websites, right? API keys, those sorts of things. Um, one of the interesting things I found out about Claude Code and I assume other tools is like when you do the directory sandboxing, saying like, yes, you can work inside this directory. Nothing stops them from touching hooks in the .git directory, which you won't see. So if you're letting it write files without changes and it changes one of those hooks, like you've got a persistence mechanism for any malware that sticks in that a lot of developers aren't going to catch because it never shows up in a Git diff, right? So I know there's some community tools out there around like having multiple DDEV instances working in Git work trees so you can run in parallel and so on. But the other consideration I could see is like, what if DDEV became a really strong tool for both parallel, agentic workflows and does it in a way where, at least out of the box, it's relatively secure. We've hardened it in terms of, ways that LLM outputs or malware could be persistent.
That's a great idea. AI, add that to the possible to-do list. Um, the I think that's brilliant. It may be too big for the likes of us. I mean, you have huge organizations working on the same problem in general with Claude and Copilot, huge organizations working on safety, and we're a very, very tiny organization here. But the possibility is there. And you can run Claude inside DDEV, and it could be a possibility, and you could try to sanitize it a bit, and it would be a step forward. Um, of course, the problem with Claude and its friends is that it can write code that has malware in it.
Hmm.
And you might not catch it. And it can create a script and ask you for permission to run the script, which is craziness, right? And I've let it do it before. It's pretty useful. But it's definitely on the fringe kind of stuff. And we're all dealing with that. So I think it's a great area of possibility. I think if we could scope it down to sizes of things that we might be able to take on, it's got some potential. Like if we could break it up in terms and instead of just thinking about safety, think about running clod or whatever inside the container, and then try to break that up into subtasks that would have value, but be something that we could accomplish. I think that's a good idea.
Hey, Randy, going back to one of Andrew's points right after I rejoined about finding new markets. For me, and maybe someone's already said this, and if so, just stop me and I'll stop talking. But kind of making an effort to go where the developers are, which is going to be, language communities rather than CMS or project communities. So, go to, reach out towards, PHP community or towards the JavaScript community or any other languages that, that DDEV can support well.
JavaScript has some real value. How would you reach out? Brainstorm a little bit about how you would reach out to PHP in general.
I think you have to kind of start with regional. You look at, where are the active PHP communities, the big PHP events around the world, and just kind of, you have to learn as you go, and just identify the communities and start reaching out and making contacts. And
there's an interesting idea there, maybe from an efficiency standpoint, in that one would hope if you went to a PHP conference, there'd be representatives from all the major PHP frameworks as well. And so, even if it was like, oh, we do want to make deeper connections with folks in the Laravel community, I suspect there are several PHP conferences where there will be the right people from the world of Laravel to talk to at the same time. And, in the world of JavaScript, maybe we don't know what a good fit would be, but you would have a chance to you look at the sessions that are proposed or the sponsors or whatever, use that as a proxy to figure out who's likely to be there and make introductions to.
So it's good thinking. There are significant frictions, of course. We don't have a travel budget. We don't have an event budget. I have, gotten to a couple of things this year, mostly self-funded or collaboratively funded. But we certainly don't have a separate marketing budget, and I'm not that great at this stuff. I went to Laracon because it was in Denver right after Drupal Camp Colorado. So I went to Laracon, but I learned a couple of things and I got exposed to the community, but I had no idea how to expose DDEV to the community. I did not know how to do that, and I did not know how to contribute to that conference. And to me, the reason to go to a conference is because you figured out a way to contribute there. And I find conferences really annoying if I can't figure out a way to contribute. I think sessions are usually useless or useless to me. Maybe I don't know enough about what they're doing. But if I can contribute, then I'm really happy to be there and I get that contact and I get that stuff. But I had no idea how to figure out how to contribute there. The Typo 3 Camp Rhein-Ruhr that I just went to in Germany was lovely because that's what I said up front. They wanted me to come. I said, well, let's figure out a way to both fund it and figure out a way for me to contribute. And they set up 2 full workshop days with companies, and the companies then funded the travel or the airfare cost. And the organizer of the event put me up at his house, which was wonderful, a delightful alternative. And then I had a great time with the people at the actual event. and spoke a couple of times. It was a bar camp, so it just, I proposed a bunch of things and a couple of them stuck. So that was great. But my general experience is I just don't know how to do it. I don't know how to make it worthwhile. And I would love to make it worthwhile. I would love to figure out a word camp, for example, um, go to a word camp and be useful there. But just going, yeah, not even, you know, can't even sell me on it. And I
Well,
can,
Randy, I think you have to start, leaning on the DDEV community as much as the DDEV community leans on you when it comes to this stuff, right? Like, I guarantee you, like people in the community who know the right people to talk to in the Laravel community or community X or community Y or community Z. And I found I've had the best luck when I do some legwork before the event, so that you know who you're going to talk to, and they kind of set up like, oh well, let's have a meet, and maybe I'll demo what DDEV can do for you or something like that. And the other thing is, it doesn't have to be you all the time, right? Now that you've got a board and a board of advisors who are, very geographically diverse, I mean, this is something I know I'd be willing to do, and I'm willing to bet a lot of other people would be willing to do as well if we had, maybe this is where the strategic initiative comes in, but some type of playbook for this.
count me in. I'm all in favor. You bet. Bernardo spoke about DDEV at the Longhorn PHP. He proposed it, did it, went. I talked to him a little bit. I didn't talk to him in great depth about what he felt like the impact was. I should go back and do that. But he proposed that, did it, went, did the session, enjoy, so that's a good start, right? And all of you, we appreciate you doing the same thing. Just presenting DDEV, I think, is not the same as getting our tentacles into these communities. So it's we are tiny, but we're powerful, and we can work together to do some great things. I sure do appreciate all of you and your long-term effort on this. I did want to mention, somebody was talking about organizations sponsoring features. Benny's organization, B13, has sponsored a feature of DDEV a few years ago, which was very much appreciated. And that is something that people can do. He had a very targeted need for a different kind of compression for files, I think, files and databases. Proposed it and funded it. So it was a lovely thing.
Nice.
Well, we're near the end of our time. Hopefully the AI transcription will have some good to-dos from the proposals here. And I will, as the end of the year comes along, I'll do a review and list of objectives partially based on this meeting, and I'll put that up as a draft blog post for you to review and react to before our meeting in January, which I find really, really valuable every year, to be able to review the past year and plan for the coming year. So your reactions to the draft ideas will be very valuable. So that gives us another chance to get ideas in, plans in, priorities in, as we're thinking about that. And of course, the meeting itself gives us a chance for people to raise their ideas and thoughts.
Randy, I know we didn't bring it up, but one thing that I think probably should be on there that is kind of my focus is fundraising and doing some sort of fundraising drive in 2026 to get us, if not to our $12,000 a month goal, a lot closer than we're going to be in January. So I don't know if you want to add that to the list, but that's definitely where my focus will be.
Absolutely. I add that to do that. That's obviously critical. It's also annoying and difficult. We've been working and talking and explicit about that for a long time now, and not going forward at an extreme pace, although we made great progress by putting it into the banner on the website and the banner on drop times and the DDEV start message have gotten us an enormous number of small sponsors, which is fantastic. In fact, I have a huge number of thank yous to do. I only did it like 2 weeks ago. I did all the thank yous, and I've already got probably 25 thank yous for new sponsors to do. Some of them are $5 a month, some of them are $50 one time, but I try to give them a thank you, and because they're our future, right? And they're people that have been willing to do this, which is great. So I don't, I had originally thought that we would get there with the support of agencies and hosting companies. And that sure hasn't been working out. We haven't gotten the agencies to step up. We've lost 2 of the $100 a month sponsors in the last month. I know that it's a very difficult time for both agencies and hosting companies, and we are not perceived as an essential expenditure. We're perceived as, extra, and they don't have extra in their budget. So that's what's going on, I'm sure, with Upsun. So anyway, yes, that is absolutely goes on the list. But a more specific plan is important. And of course, my both my capabilities and my emotional reaction to that general problem are not that great. Like I'm not great at that anyway. And after years of working on it, it hasn't been very successful. Well, I mean, we're still here. We're doing good. And we're going to do okay without Upsun. We're going to make it happen. But the strategies that we've had have not been as great as they could be. But we do consider it fundamental to do what we need to do to communicate our situation. And we made great progress on that this year with the message on DDEV Start and the new banners and the sponsorship data feed. So those are really, really significant infrastructure and presentation things, which are really, really good. So we're communicating much better, but we haven't done well with the big hits. Well, I'll post this in the advisory group discussion. Hopefully the AI will make sense. Let's see if we can get some good to-dos on it. Feel free to comment there, and we'll see if we can get a good to-do list started that adds to what we're working on these other things. I so much appreciate you taking the time out of your day. I know you're all very busy, and appreciate it very much. And thank you so much for serving on the board too. Let me just make sure that I've captured any chat that happened. Did we have any? Looks like we had everything was okay. All right. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.